Welcome to Analytics Nexus. Thanks for joining us for Eric Matisoff's presentation, Making the Most of Adobe's Best Analytics Features. Eric Matisoff is the Analytics and Data Science Evangelist at Adobe, with 10 years of digital experience working with data and visualizations. Eric has spent the majority of his time in the industry driving implementation, optimization, analysis, and data integration projects for dozens of Adobe customers on hundreds of digital experiences across high-tech, automotive, consumer products, financial, travel, retail, and healthcare verticals. Eric works with Adobe's largest accounts to help align their business strategies to the vision Adobe has defined for data ingestion, analysis, and action.
Hey everybody, my name is Eric Matisoff, and my role at Adobe is as the evangelist for analytics and platform and data science, and I am thrilled to be here at Analytics Nexus and focusing on how you can make the most of Adobe's best analytics features. And so I've got a slew of tips and tricks and ideas to share with you during the next little while. And so I figured to kind of kick things off in a fun way, I would give you a nice friendly photo of my 7-month-old daughter, that's Eden there, who is definitely making the most of being held by her dad, who is drinking a Guinness. So I thought that you would enjoy that just as much as I did and just as much as she did. So we're all looking to make the most of whatever we have. And so with Adobe, that means taking advantage of our biggest and our best features throughout your entire experience using Adobe Analytics. So let's jump in. Across this session, we're going to be focusing, or I'm going to be focusing on four or five different key goals. Number one, I want you as analysts to be able to improve your ability to answer business questions with using Analysis Workspace. That's a no-brainer, right? That's why almost 9 out of 10, probably 99 out of 100 of you are here, is to figure out better ways to answer questions using Analysis Workspace. But the next few are kind of interesting as well. The second goal for the session is for you to enable the novice users within your organization, which of course you may or may not be, but I'm assuming that most of you are probably pretty good experts here. But I've put together some tips that can help you enable those novices to self-serve and gain access to insights without having to pick up the phone or message you on Slack or anything like that in order to get help. The third goal here is to provide support for executives to be able to better access and understand the data that they have access to within Analysis Workspace, and realizing that not every executive in your company is going to feel comfortable with data. So what are some ways that when they ask that question about data, about questions that can be answered with data, how can you empower them to have more flexible, more contextualized reports and visualizations? The fourth goal here is to empower your admins, and trust me, I'm an admin on way too many Adobe Analytics implementations over the years. And so how can we empower admins to better maintain and better justify what Adobe Analytics investments are doing for them? And then finally, I want to make sure that you yourself are taking advantage of all of the latest capabilities that have been brought to Adobe Analytics. So let's do it. That first tip here, the first focus, is going to be on improving the analyst ability to answer business questions within Analysis Workspace. You can see some of the different capabilities down below, but let's just jump into it. The first, this is an easy one. We're just going to take advantage of our ability to just simply squeeze more and more data into the project that you're looking at within Analysis Workspace. All that needs to be done is go into project and then slide on down to project info and settings, and you can see how easy it is to switch from the default, which is expanded, to comfortable or even compact. And you can see how quickly that will adjust the data within your visualizations and your tables, as well as the left rail there that lists your dimensions and metrics. The whole goal is just simply putting more data and more information on your screen at a time. What we've noticed is that more and more analysts prefer this really tight view, whereas those that are less comfortable with data, maybe the marketer or the business person or the executive, they like that expanded view so that they can more comfortably discern between the different rows of data. The next tip to talk about is taking advantage of a relatively new feature within your segmentation, which is called the equals any of operator. And so what does that mean? That means you saw at first there was the marketing channel that said this or that or this other thing or this other marketing channel, display or email or paid search or natural search. Well, we have this new operator in segmentation that says, you know what, you can take advantage of equals any of in order to filter to just those specific items. And you can see we're dragging in that 4-channel segment here. And now we're saying it's just paid search, display, email, or natural search. The big advantage to doing that, besides the ability to see all of your potential marketing channels or whatever your dimension is on a single, in a more compact segment, the advantage is that it actually runs faster within our segmentation engine behind the scenes. So that means that you're going to access data more quickly, and you'll be able to better continue your analyses. In fact, the one recommendation I would add to that, just as we're doing here in this animation, is make sure that when you build your segments, you're actually QAing them. So that's my extra little tip to share to you is whenever you build a segment, do what you can to QA that segment before actually beginning your analysis. So we drag and drop and edit our segment and save it. Then you know what? Confirm that it's doing exactly what you're expecting. The next tip here is to take advantage of yet another truly powerful and unique to Adobe segment operator, which is our distinct count segmentation. Now, distinct count is saying you can focus in on, and that's what we're doing here, products or hits that were limited to products of at least 3 specific dimensional values. So product A and product B and product C, for example, would all be captured in that single hit, and you would then be able to identify what those hits look like. And the difference there, this can be super valuable for retail brands that are looking to see and limit their orders to product purchases of more than 1 item or more than 10 items, so you can really distinguish the differences there. Another thing to consider is that this segment operator works for more than just the products or the SDOT products variable. It will work for any of your multi-entity dimensions, which means that you've got products, you've got list vars, and you've got list props, and each of those can be segmented using distinct count. You'll notice there's a few different types of distinct count as well in terms of is greater than, is equal to, is less than, etc. So some nice options for you to take advantage of when you're trying to do these types of analyses. Something else for you to think about is taking better advantage of our drop-down filters. Drop-down filters were a feature that we released last year, and we've had nothing but great responses from customers across the board around how to utilize them. Let me show you a little bit around what you can do with them. First, you may have and be kind of sick of a workspace listing just like the one you see here, where you've been managing multiple projects for the exact same analysis for different countries or different brands or different products or different channels. And so you can see we've got highlighted marketing channel analysis for 3 different countries, the US, the UK, and Australia. And every time we want to add one visualization to one of those, we have to add it to all 3, which means that we're wasting time. Similarly, within an analysis workspace project, you can see we're doing the same thing here, where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different panels that all have a different segment based on the marketing channel, one for social, one for display, email, SEO, and paid search. But otherwise, these panels are identical. They're just using different segments. And so what we can do is apply drop-down filters to bring those 5 different panels across 3 different projects into a single project. And let me show you how that's possible. We just simply delete those superfluous panels and give it a more generic panel name. And then we begin our drop-down magic, where we're just simply going to highlight all of the different marketing channel items that we need to bring in. There were 5 of them, if I remember correctly. When we drag them in, we hold shift, and you can see that right there in uh, the tip there, and we add those 4 additional marketing channels so that all we need to do is click that drop down and we can switch from display to natural search to email, etc. And so that's a really simple way to simplify your workflow so that you're spending less time managing all of the different panels within a single project. Now, similarly, we could do the exact same thing for countries. So we can add more than one drop-down filter within a project. So we can start with United Kingdom and United States, and then add in Australia as a third country. And now we've consolidated those 5 different panels across 3 different projects to just a single panel with 2 different drop-downs. Some of the things to keep in mind, you can actually right-click that friendly pre-built term of marketing channel above the drop-down filter to something that perhaps is more user-friendly for the end user. So you can just simply right-click the word marketing channel and it'll rename it for you. So something nice little, did you know tip and trick to add to this one. A really powerful way to extend these drop-down filters is to expand the type of analysis you can do into something like cross-sell. Now, the concept of cross-sell is not too scary. It's similar to what you're seeing here. Someone is buying more than one item. This person is really into buying pillows and pillow covers. They have a down pillow, they have a pillow cover, and they have a pillowcase, etc. You can see even in the s.products JavaScript at the bottom, they have the pillow insert, the pillowcase that's blue, as well as the silver pillowcase. Now, what if you're curious and ask the question, what other products are users buying with their pillow insert? So in the old reports and analytics interface, Omniture, Catalyst, whatever you want to call it, we had a specific report that focused on this concept of products by cross-sell, where you could see exactly the answer to the question that I just asked. What products are being purchased with prod 1023? We can see products 1049, 1102, 1009, etc. But within Analysis Workspace, it's not quite so easy. We can't just simply drag and drop because that means we're actually correlating that data together. However, we have the power of drop-down filters to expand on this, where if we filter now using the hit drop-down filter to pants, we can see all of the other types of categories that are being purchased alongside of that. And that does exactly our goal of cross-sell analysis, but instead, we're just simply using drop-down filters. Keep in mind that, as I mentioned, this will work for any multi-valued dimension as well. I mentioned list vars and list props earlier, but if you're using audience analytics to integrate Adobe Audience Manager with Adobe Analytics, you can also use it for your audience's name dimension as well. So some nice ways to break down your data. All right, so that was our analyst tips. Let's dig into how to better enable your novices. Now, every organization is looking, it's going to be summertime before we know it, and everyone's going to be starting to interview interns. And when you get those interns into your office, how can you make sure that they're better taking advantage of the data that's at their fingertips? And perhaps they're not interns, perhaps they're executives that you need to train them how to better use Analysis Workspace or anywhere in between. If they're new to Adobe Analytics, here's a few different capabilities to help empower them. The first thing to keep in mind is that little blue bar in the bottom right that you can see highlighted now for create custom date ranges. That's a really good thing to just simply teach these users how to take advantage of it. All they need to do if they want to keep an eye on the latest and greatest tips and features from Adobe, they can just click that button and they'll have in-product tips. Now, something else that you as an analyst or an expert or or a seasoned Adobe Analytics professional may realize is that you can actually hide those tips because they, perhaps they bother your eye. You can click that little eyeball in the bottom right over here in order to hide those tips going forward. So you've got a few different options. Number one, certainly encourage your users to use them, but if they are in the way for your analysis, you can always get rid of them. Another feature that I'm a really big fan of are these drop zone guides. You can see a few of them all highlighted at the same time in this screenshot, where we're informing newer users, but even seasoned users, what will happen when you drag and drop a dimension or a metric or a segment or a time range into Analysis Workspace. We want to proactively inform users what's going to happen before they drop it and realize, uh-oh, I made a mistake. And so as you can see, when it's blue, like add or break down, then that's telling you you've got new information coming. This is good news. You're getting what you're expecting. However, you can see that add button in orange that says metric overlap. If we drag an additional metric underneath another metric, then Analysis Workspace isn't going to know what to do, and we're overlapping that metric. So it's a really good way for both new users and experts to take advantage of knowing what's going to happen before you let your mouse button go. Another feature that I'm a really big fan of is adding some additional business value context to your component descriptions. So you can see here that we have that description highlighted. Now, items that are EVARs and props and events, those are automatically available in the admin console in order to add those descriptions in there. So those are going to be your administrators who have the ability to add that description there. A lot of times in those descriptions, I like to include what actually is this metric or dimension used for, what other metrics or dimensions or segments does it make sense to break it down with or interact or use and analyze that component with. And perhaps maybe to point out where it doesn't make sense to use this metric or dimension or segment as well. For calculated metrics and segments, you can actually build descriptions of those in the component managers for calculated metrics and segments. So just simply hover over components here, click components, and slide on down to those different types of components for calculated metrics and segments in order to add that additional context. Speaking of components and organization, you can also apply tags to those components as well. And that means metrics, dimensions, calculated metrics, segments, time ranges, anything, you have the ability to add a new tag that says, you know what, I want to filter to just internal search related metrics. And you can see automatically we're filtered to different component types that align with that requirement. This is a great way to empower your users to more quickly find the components that matter to them. You also have access to pre-built tags that become available within the left rail as well, as you can see listed on this slide. You can easily filter to dimensions or metrics, whether they be regular dimensions or classifications or standard metrics versus calculated metrics. Plus, you've got implementation specific dimensions that are, or tags that are applied as well, whether they're props and EVARs or links and custom events. If you need to, for example, find just everything that's focused on your A for T integration with Adobe Target, you can use that as a tag filter as well. And for those of you that have been around for a little too long when it comes to using Adobe Analytics and Omniture, that last group of other common groups, geo and marketing channels, mobile, visitor profile, and retention, those will feel very familiar with the old Omniture Site Catalyst menu structure as well. So a really great way to navigate all of the different components that exist within the left rail of Analysis Workspace. All right, so tip number 3 focuses on supporting executive decision-making with more flexible and more contextual reports. Let's dig in. This first item is taking advantage of a relatively new feature, which is to just quickly, with a single click, uncheck unspecified and none. In fact, for those of you that have ever seen or read a blog post about what unspecified means, hopefully you understand what that actually means. But I would bet that for those of you that have written them, that's probably one of your most trafficked, most viewed blog posts on your site. I know that there are a number of them that are out there, and I share them often. And it's great to know that more easily than ever, you have the ability to just click a button and hide your unspecified or none row, which is great because I can't imagine how many executives out there have asked, well, what does this actually mean? And so knowing that it can super simply be removed is a great, great new tiny little feature there. Something else that executives often care about are colors. And I know that the executives here at Adobe love to see the really specific brand colors that we use. I bet it's the same thing at your company. And so being able to not only choose some predetermined color palettes, but also adding in your custom hex values so that you can make it nice and pretty and aligned exactly with your brand is a unique way to add a little bit of spice into your analysis workspace project. Another way to empower the executive is to use calculated metrics in order to add some context, some additional perspective into the data that you're showing. Let me give you an example. The first is one that sounds like an advanced statistical function that you probably wouldn't want to use for an executive called z-score. But doing so will actually enable the executive to better understand the context of the metric that you're showing. Let me show you how it works. You just simply drag and drop this advanced statistical function called z-score. And what that's going to do is show you how far from the average the metric is over time. So we can see we've created an online order participation metric that we're adding in here, throwing it into z-score. And now we can see across all of these different internal search terms how close or far they are from the average when it comes to helping drive order participation. In fact, you can see we even right-click the name of that calculated metric in the visualization to say compared to the average, let me actually fast forward that for you, how, um, how far is that internal search term. And so we can see that these search terms right here, numbers 36 and 37, those are right around the average, though those at the top, items 4, 2, 27, and 5, these are way above average. And then these below, 16, 24, 63, 84, those are way below average. So super powerful way to use advanced statistical functions within Analysis Workspace without having to explain what the heck is actually going on with the math behind the scenes. Next up is using the cumulative average function in order to show a little bit more of a friendly trend of your data over time. In this example, we're actually using a conversion rate, so we have to pull in cumulative average twice, but that may or may not be necessary for you depending on what kind of a trend you're aiming to show. We're adding in the number 10 to show how many periods of data do we want to normalize our metric by, and then we give it a friendly name and we can save it. Once we save it, you'll see that we actually added in to this additional trend, which is showing kind of this crazy up and down trend. But since we know that perhaps 10 days or 10 weeks worth of data, we will start to see that trend smooth out. That's the goal of this additional cumulative average granularity and calculated metric. You notice that actually with that granularity, we can change it from day to week or from week to hour or minute, etc. And it'll continue to smooth it out depending on whatever time period you have. Really powerful way to use a pretty simple calculated metric there. So next up, we have your need to empower the administrators within your organization. Now, I have a feeling we probably have a lot of Adobe Analytics admins in this webinar, so this section, this is for you. So let's think about how we can better maintain and justify the need to have Adobe Analytics at your company. First of all, you can use the Adobe Analytics Health Dashboard in order to ensure that your data is sound, that it's accurate, that it's getting the data and values that you expect. A year or so ago, we actually completely rebuilt this from the ground up so that it's using the latest Analytics API version 2.0, so that it now has anomaly detection. It runs a heck of a lot faster. You can pull in virtual report suites. You can pull in all sorts of really valuable stuff in here. And the whole goal is to inform you what is going on with your data across the entire report suite. So that means what metrics are going up or down, what metrics have dropped to 0 or skyrocketed to 1 billion, what are the different values within each of your EVARs and props, and what's getting populated. Those are the goals of the Analytics Health Dashboard, and to more easily inform you of that information so that you can more quickly identify problems with your tagging or problems with your website, or maybe inform your analysts of, hey, just to let you know, feature X, Y, or Z has been removed from the product. Did you know that it will also, don't forget that it will also be removed from the data as well. If you'd like to download the latest and greatest version, you can see this link here, adobe.ly/AA health. It is case sensitive, so make sure it's lowercase AA health as well. The other thing to keep in mind is this does require Windows in order to run. So for those of you like me that are on a Mac, don't worry, it runs fine in my virtual machine. All right, so what about everyone's question about cookies? This is a question that comes in all the time lately around how is Adobe and how are all the different analytics vendors dealing with the changes to third-party, first-party cookies and beyond, along with legislation that limit that focus on privacy as well. So you can think about how can we ensure that data is complete by being ready for ITP across each of the different browsers. And ITP is Safari's version, but enhanced data protection for Firefox is a very similar concept. And even for Chrome now, there's a limitation on same site and same site cookies, etc. So let's dig in. The first thing that you want to be thinking about when it comes to key steps is you want to begin, if you haven't already, apply a CNAME to your Adobe Analytics and Experience Cloud cookies. What that means is that you're no longer sending data to sc.omtrdc.net, but instead it's metrics.whatever your brand name is.com or something similar to that. And there's instructions for how to go about that, as well as the entire process for handling ITP at this specific URL as well. Again, adobe.ly/ITP, all lowercase. The second thing that you'll want to do from a tagging perspective is make sure that the Experience Cloud ID service is using the latest and greatest version, which is at least version 4.3, which is set up to handle these updates in order to use first-party cookies for Adobe Analytics and the Experience Cloud as a whole. And with that, you're about ready to deal with all of those crazy cookie changes that have been happening over the last couple of years. All right, so how about measuring Adobe Analytics usage in order to justify your investment? This is one that all the time we have lovers of Adobe Analytics, whether it's analysts or marketers or business users or admins coming to us and saying, how can we show that Adobe Analytics is used so much across the organization? Well, you can head to adobe.ly/AA usage, all lowercase, in order to complete this next tip. First, you can answer questions like how many users are accessing analytics each month? Or are people logging in more since we had that big expensive training session where we flew everyone to Hawaii in order to teach them Adobe Analytics? By the way, if you did fly everyone to Hawaii, maybe you should fly me out there as well. The next thing, maybe which users in my organization are still using reports and analytics, but should be using Analysis Workspace. You can answer that question as well. And what about users that are that I'm sharing projects with? Are they actually opening them and interacting with them? You can answer that question. And finally, who deleted my segment? These are the types of questions that you can answer using the analytics usage tip here. So it's a 6-step process. First, you want to create a new report suite. Then you want to download the usage and access log data, which you can access if you're an admin. Then you want to slightly transform that data into analytics compatible format, and then import it into Adobe Analytics and enrich it with classifications, virtual report suites, and then finally begin your analysis. And it sounds kind of scary. That's 6 steps. Really, it's just 5 if you think about it, those first 5 in order to get the data ready. And I tried actually doing this a couple of days ago. It took me about 20-25 minutes from start to finish. It's really, really not that painful. And that Spark page does a great job of walking you through step by step by step by step to get to 0 to analytics usage analysis. The other thing to point out here is that each row of data does count as a server call against your Adobe Analytics contract. But if you think about it, it's really a drop in the bucket. Those server calls are charged at a monthly million, and these would just be a few dozen or a couple of hundred rows that you're importing. So it's really just a drop in the bucket. All right, and last but not least, we have our tip to make sure that you are taking advantage of some of the latest capabilities to come to Adobe Analytics. The first one here is one called Attribution IQ. Now, Attribution IQ, if you're not familiar with it, allows you to use a non-default attribution model for any dimension within Analysis Workspace for just about any metric. And so as you can see, we've chosen time decay here, and now we can see how the different marketing channels adjust when we're no longer using a last touch click model. And it's a big, big change in terms of identifying marketing channels, but also internal search terms or internal campaign IDs, all sorts of different ways that this can be used. So within Attribution IQ, you can see that we've got 10 plus different models available to use at your discretion. And the reason we have that little plus there is because of the flexibility that time decay and custom models add, and that you have virtually an unlimited number of different ways that you can tweak the way that data is attributed back to your different dimensional values because of the different number of weeks or days or months associated with time decay, as well as the starter, player, closer customizability within the custom model. Now, for those of you that are heading to Summit next month at the end of March, you'll be really excited to hear about a brand new model that we're bringing to Adobe Analytics later this year. And I'm not going to completely spoil the surprise, but you should make sure not to miss the Data and Insights keynote on Tuesday. So little self-plug there, shameless plug, but really excited to introduce a brand new model to Attribution IQ soon. Something else that you can take advantage of within Analysis Workspace and Attribution IQ is you can actually use different models depending for different columns. So you can see here we added desktop versus mobile phone, and we realized perhaps that for desktop, we're looking for a last touch model, but for mobile phone, we've analyzed that the majority of visitors use mobile phone for acquisition, so we're going to limit that to just simply first touch attribution for marketing channels for online orders over there. So it's a really powerful way to put an unlimited number of columns side by side by side by side using any different number of attribution models together. You also, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is you can apply Attribution IQ to really any dimension within Analysis Workspace. You can switch from site section to referring domain, internal search term, and internal campaigns in order to see all the different ways that those types of values, those dimensions, are driving conversion downstream. So be sure to expand your usage of attribution IQ way beyond just the limited use case of marketing and advertising. And for those of you that are using analytics for target, we have a big bonus for you as well. So within a month or so ago, a few months ago, we added activity impressions and conversions and the ability to add the same touch model from attribution IQ to your A for T data as well. And what this means is now Analysis Workspace is using the exact same attribution model for those two metrics as Adobe Target does in Adobe Target reporting. And so your data is going to align even more. And yet again, not so subtle or shameless plug for Summit, we're going to have a really big announcement for A for T as well. So again, don't miss that Data and Insights keynote, or at least keep an eye on Twitter. All right, so another key tip and trick for using attribution is for using it right within a calculated metric. And we have a whole slew of inspiration here. In fact, I could probably have an entire webinar with Analytics Nexus next year on all of the different ways that you can pull attribution data into calculated metrics. But I thought it would be interesting just to point out a smattering of calculated metrics that we've created using attribution IQ, and perhaps this is a good time to take a fun little screenshot. And so highlighted in red here, for those of you that have a good amount of content on your brand website, whether it be a blog or you're a media website that has a ton of different articles, content participation as well as content participation rate can be of specific interest for you. Also, for those of you that have very specific conversions, so that would not really be the media world, but perhaps the retail world or others, when there's a specific metric like orders or bookings for travel and hospitality, etc., try using these items in red, these calculated metrics, in order to get some new ways to dig into your data using attribution IQ, whether it's acquisition rate, closure rate, your life cycle index, and even your assist rate, which is especially cool because you're just looking not at your starters or your closer marketing channels, but you're looking just at the ones in the middle that are assisting in that end conversion. Really powerful way to apply attribution IQ. Now, the last feature I want to talk about is another relatively new one, and this one is limited to just those customers that have access to the Adobe Analytics Ultimate SKU. And this key differentiator is called cross-device analytics. And guess what it does? It provides you analytics that is cross-device. Let's dig into it a little bit. First of all, it empowers analysts to have person-centric cross-device data, which means that behavior from multiple devices, that's the phone, the tablet, the laptop, OTT, anything that is sending data into Adobe Analytics, into a global report suite, is now merged together. And as new devices come online, so, I've been browsing the adobe.com website for 2 years, and finally, today I log in on both of my devices. That 2 years worth of behavioral data is stitched together historically so that I look like a single person over time. You'll also see interactive visualizations that are merged across devices for a person as well. That means we're no longer focused on the visitor, we're focused on the person. And that means visualizations like the one on the screen here for your flow diagrams, but also fallout, as well as cohort tables, segmentation, anything that has containers that normally would be limited to visitor would be expanded even up to people. Now, how does it work? We've got two different ways that customers are already taking advantage of cross-device analytics. That is using the Adobe Device Graph, using either the device co-op, which means that if you're based in the US or Canada, you have the opportunity to opt in to this device co-op, where anonymous devices can be linked together by the power of the scale that Adobe Analytics customers have. The other option, if you're not so keen on the device co-op, would be a private device graph, where only users that log in or click through on an email or have some type of identifier can then have devices that are linked together as well. It's a really powerful capability there. We're seeing some great use cases from our customers and how they're taking advantage of it as well. And so, some other ways that you can learn about cross-device analytics, including what it is, how it works, and what type of analyses can be enabled, are all available at this link, adobe.ly/AACDA for cross-device analytics, AACDA all in lowercase once again. And so that is everything that I have for you during this session. So now you should be able to do all of those goals that we talked about earlier, whether it's improving your analyst ability, empowering your novices and executives, or even giving admins a better way to maintain and justify their analytics investment. And finally, taking advantage of some of those really cool, hot off the press capabilities as well. If you're interested in some resources for the road, here are just a smattering of new additional resources for you, whether they're just some additional tips or a focus on workspace or a whole complete list of all of the adobe.ly URLs for AA resources. So once again, a great way to keep on top of everything that we're sharing in terms of Adobe Analytics customer enablement. With that, I'd like to thank Claravine as well as the Adobe team for helping me put together this great content. And thank you so much for sticking with me during this time, and enjoy the rest of the virtual conference. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks so much for watching this presentation. Join us on the Analytics Nexus Slack to talk with our presenters about this topic and more.